Scott, good morning. Great to have you on the show. As someone who was on that stage this past Friday night, what was your goal as you went into that debate, and how do you think the entire night went for you?
Well, Pete, first off, thanks for having me on. My goal was, it's a low bar, but my wife said, don't screw it up. And so that is really where we started off at. But I think it went really well. I focus over, all this time I've been doing public policy on making solutions that actually work. And then how do you communicate that to the public? And I think I did that. I think I did it pretty well.
What was the thing for you? If you were to say to somebody right now on a street corner anywhere in Kansas, hey, I was on the debate stage on Friday night, and if they didn't watch 1 minute of the debate, what would you want them to know about something you said or one big takeaway from your perspective on what you thought was a big win for your campaign?
I was the only one who had a substantive solution for highways and for property taxes, priority property taxes.
And what are those? Let's start with the highways and then the property taxes.
Well, the highways, and this is coming from my Jeans tour where we just toured the state and listened to folks and actually saw the problems with our own eyes. Liberal Kansas has got a problem. There's a 4-lane highway that stops at Garden City. It needs to go further west. And then there is no north-south 4-lane corridor. And if we want to grow those rural communities in western Kansas, they need access to get products to market. And it's going to be a long-term vision, but we need to start now, that we need to start looking at a 4-way north-south corridor from Liberal going up to I-70 so that we can connect our communities so that they can get goods to market. Right now, if you're selling products in the ag industry in northwest Kansas and you're trying to get down to Lubbock or to New Mexico or down to Houston, it's hard.
What, for obviously people here in the Kansas City area, they may not think about the southwest quarter of Kansas as much as they should in terms of growing the state, which is really what everybody wants to achieve. This state just is not growing. There's more outflow migration than there is folks coming in. Why is that such a big deal for that part of the state and having better highway and road access in southwest Kansas and how that can revitalize rural parts of southwest Kansas?
Well, first off, I'm going to kind of challenge your premise for a little bit first, because data and polling shows that it is a concern for the metro area on the Kansas side. There's a lot of folks like me who come from a small town in central or western Kansas, and they see their town shrinking, and they want solutions. But they should be concerned because the more the tax burden for the entire state is put on communities like Topeka, Wichita, and Johnson County, it's going to affect their taxes. It's going to affect their burden. And if we have a broader based tax base, it's going to lower our overall tax burden. And right now, it's expensive to live in Kansas. More people work for government in Kansas than anything else. And that's not sustainable.
So when you look at some of your opponents, specifically Ty Masterson, who, of course, got the endorsement from President Trump, what do you think that plays and what role that plays in this race? We know a prominent candidate, Jeff Collier, dropped out after the Trump endorsement came down. Why did you say to yourself, hey, that did happen, but I don't think that really impacts me or my chances? How did you come to that conclusion ahead of the filing deadline last week?
Well, I wouldn't say it didn't impact my chances. It obviously does. You got to be honest with yourself. The Trump endorsement's a big deal, but it's not an automatic winner. We saw that in Iowa. And it's political science, not political art. It's data-based. My messaging is resonating with the people of Kansas. They're very concerned with property taxes. My name ID is very high. My positives are incredibly high. And so this is a wide open race. Look, I respect Ty. He and I get along. We've worked together for years. But this is a wide open race. And he got a bump, but it's not points that match. There's over 50% of likely Republican voters that have not decided in this race. And it's up to all of us to make our case. So there's a clear pathway. And it's very, very clear. It may not be as wide as it once was, but it's very, 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 very clear.
Scott Schwab, Secretary of State, running for governor of Kansas on KCMO, the big debate last Friday. Property taxes, I know that's probably issue number one across the entire state. So you have, as you call it, the bald plan. For people who don't know, you happen to be bald, so I like how you did that there. But what is the thing about that plan that people need to understand and realize as we actually try to get the property taxes in this state under control?
Well, what we've learned over the last several years that the legislature has not been able to do anything substantive on property taxes. And I learned this from Rick Carlson when he was chair of tax. I was vice chair, and he was my mentor, and I was just learning how to do tax reform. Is it takes two things to do tax reform. It takes consensus and a Republican governor. I tell folks I can give you both. You don't try to do seismic things. Do the small things that have seismic impact. And little things like, for example, if you sell your property for less than what it was appraised for, why do you not get a tax refund? Why does government get rewarded for making mistakes? It should not. The appraisers are in the get it right business, but they don't have to. And oftentimes they appraise to the budget as opposed to just appraise. And so the state needs to authorize the software that the counties use to appraise. Right now, it's a free-for-all. If you have a Cadova in, let's say, Johnson County and a Cadova in Andover, and it's a similar market, they are appraised completely different because there's no standards. There's no guidelines that are followed. And that absolutely has to change.
What's the big thing Scott Schwab also does when it comes to reversing the outflow migration issues that this state has dealt with over the last several years?
We are the agricultural epicenter of the North American continent. The whole world needs to know if they've got a question on production or animal health, that Kansas has the answers. And right now we're known as somebody who makes car batteries with Panasonic. But ag is the seventh of our economy. And that's what grew our rural towns, was agriculture. And if they know that we have the answers, they're going to put that ag manufacturing as it relates to feeding ag where the ag is, which is in our rural towns. But again, they've got to be next to a highway where they can get their goods to market.
Okay, what is, I mean, I don't know how deep you've gone on this, but as someone who knows the southwest part of the state very well, having used to work and cover news down in that part of the world, what is the cost of any of this for a state that now has a $26 billion budget? It is already pretty heavy on government workers, as you've alluded to. What do you think it would cost to do some of this? Is this a federal dollar thing? Like, what would this ideal highway system through southwest Kansas look like?
Well, it's going to be, you're going to have to ask the feds to kick in 100%. You're going to ask not 100% of the project, but you're going to need federal help. But Kansas needs to be asking for more federal help. We are a net loser on federal tax dollars. We give more to the federal government than we take in. And so we need to start going with our federal partners and also going to the White House saying, hey, here's the deal. We give you a lot of money. We need help. And here's the area we need help. And a north-south corridor out west doesn't just help western Kansas. It helps the entire Midwest.
Would you want to connect, like, Liberal, Garden City, Dodge? Would you want to connect it up to 70 and 35, basically? Is that how you see this working?
No. You're running too much pavement over too much ag land. You just want to go, you need to there's a 4-lane highway going west out of Wichita, and you can get all the way to Garden City, but it doesn't get to Liberal. It needs to get to Liberal.
Gotcha.
Because Highway 50 just doesn't even have a shoulder, and there's so many grain trucks going down there at 50, 55, 60 miles an hour with teenagers on the same road. You need to have a shoulder. We need to define that in the statute so that there's an escape route to protect those drivers and have less injuries on the highway. But we need to work. It's going to take decades, but work on a 4-lane north-south corridor from Liberal all the way up to I-70. Mm-hmm. And take your time with that. I mean, it doesn't have to be done in a year, but you got to start.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at these massive highway projects, they take time. But the last several governors haven't even started that conversation. Mm-hmm. So let's start the conversation and let's start putting funding mechanisms in place because it's desperately needed. I can lower your manufacturing costs and save you a little bit of money. But if I can lower your deliverables, you're going to want to come to my state because you save money in Kansas.
Scott Schwab is here. All right. People want to know, too, are you going to be up on TV, radio? Are we going to be seeing more of Scott Schwab here over the next 7-8 weeks?
Yeah. So I'm the only one with conservative credentials that's been elected statewide, and I have good name ID. So don't waste your marketing when you don't need to spend it yet. So people are just now starting to pay attention. Obviously, the debate was a catalyst for that. But school got out, a lot of family. If you go to church, your church is probably not super crowded as it normally is because a lot of families are on vacation right now. Kids just got out of school. As we get closer to July 4th, as we get closer to the 250th anniversary of our country's founding, you're going to see a lot more Scott Schwab on TV. And I'm sorry, my face is going to be in your living room. I apologize. It's not the greatest looking thing. I get it, but you're going to love the message.
Well, it sounds like a reason to be on radio then. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yes,
Scott
of course,
Schwab.
radio. Of course. I'm not going to throw shade on Pete Mundo. Of course,
right.
we'll be on radio.
I just like to double check. We appreciate you, Scott. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Have a great